Yeah, I mean, totally. And it's not just content editors. If you take a step back, this ecosystem shift or this thing that's happening, right? The Jamstack or modern web tooling or static sites or all of this stuff, these are very developer-led movements. These are developers getting excited about their pains or pains that they relate to, right? So like a developer pain can be, I need to code in PHP, or I need to maintain an AWS setup that is just a pain in the ass every time I need to change something. It's like to set up an SSL certificate in AWS is like horrible, right? It's extremely painful experience. I hate doing that. Or, I could make the website faster. That would be cool. I can relate to that. I'd get excited about that. I don't necessarily think about how marketing folks edit the site. And so I think that the Jamstack and the evolution of the Jamstack and the fact that the Jamstack is like happening en masse is driven by developers and the benefits that accrue mostly to them. Um, and it is not atypical that during that process, especially early on, we sacrifice a lot of other things or a lot of our other constituents. And I think that in the case of the Jamstack, we're still at this point where what's pushing the adoption of the Jamstack is developers and the benefits that accrue to them or to their areas of responsibility. Um, but at the same time, colloquially, we are completely sacrificing a lot of the other stakeholders. And so the number one type of stakeholder to think about is the editors or the marketers, typically at companies, or people building these sites, not coding these sites, but the people clicking the H1 and trying out a headline, or the people creating a new blog post, or the people tasked with creating 15 new landing pages today, for 15 different personas for a website, or the people tasked with launching a mini site based on the look and feel that the company already has for its site. Those are kind of like daily activities for people who work on websites that the shift to the Jamstack completely kind of ignores. We don't think about what's the editing experience like for these sites. We don't think about what is the workflow of working on these sites, and what's the interplay between like the non-technical people and the technical people. And the easiest way to look at this is to look at to think about this is to think about products in the website building space that are geared at non-developers, and products that are kind of like end to end, so-called walled gardens. And the easy ones to think about are Shopify and Wix and Squarespace and recently even Webflow. Those are tools or platforms that enable someone to come in and kind of end to end build a website. That doesn't really exist with the Jamstack, and it's not to say that the Jamstack should reproduce that exact experience, even though I think there are benefits to that, and our company StackBit is that's kind of the kind of stuff that we're working on. But I just think that looking at the activities that people go through during their work on these types of websites, and then looking at the Jamstack and asking, well, how do we do that? The answer is typically, you need a couple of developers to be heavily involved. Um, and I think that that's kind of a glaring, an area with a bunch of needs, because the dissonance is that we as developers are excited about the Jamstack and we feel like we solved it. Like, oh, problem solved. Websites are fast, they're secure, total cost of ownership has gone down, and Jack from marketing, just needs to learn how to edit Markdown, and we'll be great. And we need to create him a user in GitHub. Or we need to set them up with headless CMS XYZ, which is often a great way to edit content, but still leaves a lot to be desired in terms of working on websites, because inherently websites have the idea of content, and the Jamstack really promotes the idea of structured content and content as an entity which is separate from the website itself. And so there's the idea of just editing content in kind of a pure sense where we're focusing on content, but when you have a website which is generated from content, and content can be a blog post or it could be an H1 and it can be the video in the hero section. But when people typically edit websites in a non kind of like forensic content editing mode, they expect a visual experience. And you see all the popular site builders, first and foremost, the experience that you get is visual editing. People want to be able to click, change, drag and drop, switch, see components, move around, pick layouts, preview changes instantly. And I think we're still at the phase with the Jamstack where those things are either impossible or there's a massive tax to be able to do them. Um, and so I think that we're still at this point where it's a movement which is mainly pushed by developers and adopted by developers. And I think that the ecosystem, through the ventures of many different companies and open source projects, is looking for this next level to unlock this next level of productivity, where we can actually have the Jamstack or Jamstack websites positively embraced by other constituents within companies or with clients for an agency or a freelancer.